The last Valorian refugee ship had gone silent 19 hours ago, and nobody at Station Reinar 7 seemed to care. Lyra Sonnen stood at her administrator console, watching the blinking distress marker fade in and out on her screen. 217 of her people were out there somewhere in the dead corridor, probably already in chains, probably already sold to labor cartels that would work them until their bodies gave out. She had filed 6 requests for rescue authorization. All 6 had been denied. The dead corridor was pirate territory. No patrol vessel would enter. No military ship would risk it. The refugees were acceptable losses. Lyra closed her eyes and tried to accept this. Her species had survived for thousands of years by accepting hard truths, by running when running was wise, by letting go of what could not be saved. This was how Valorians endured. But she could not stop thinking about the children on that transport. A commotion near the docking terminals caught her attention. A cargo freighter had just arrived, and its pilot was causing problems at the customs checkpoint. Lyra pulled up the security feed and saw a human male arguing with the inspection officers. Humans Lyra had encountered a few during her time on the station. Strange creatures. Her grandmother used to tell stories about them. Stories passed down from the first contact era. Humans came from a world that tried to kill them every day, and instead of evolving to escape danger, they evolved to face it. They were persistence predators, pack hunters, beings who chased their prey across entire continents until it collapsed from exhaustion. The old stories said humans did not know how to stop. Lyra watched the human on her screen. He was not particularly large, not obviously dangerous. His hands were scarred and calloused, and he moved with a calm efficiency that suggested he had done hard work for many years. The customs officers eventually let him through, and he walked into the station with an unhurried stride. His name, according to the docking registry, was Daniel Price, former search and rescue specialist, current independent cargo hauler, no criminal record, no military service, just a man who flew freight between stations. Lyra found herself walking toward the supply depot where his ship was being serviced. She did not know why. Her feet simply carried her there, as though some part of her had already made a decision her mind had not yet processed. Daniel was checking his fuel levels when she approached. He glanced up, noted her administrator insignia, and waited. "You are human," Lyra said. "Last time I checked. I have heard stories about your kind, about what you do when others need help." Daniel's expression did not change. "What kind of help are we talking about?" Lyra told him everything: the refugee transport, the dead corridor, the pirates who called themselves grave keepers, the 217 Valorians who would disappear into slavery if no one came for them. She spoke quickly, afraid she would lose her courage if she stopped. When she finished, Daniel was quiet for a long moment. 19 hours, he said. "Yes, that's a long time. They could already be scattered across a dozen systems by now." "I know," Lyra felt her hope crumbling. "I know it is probably hopeless, I just thought." "I didn't say no." Lyra blinked. "What?" Daniel turned back to his ship. "I'll need fuel credits, station clearance, and whatever navigation data you have on the dead corridor. Can you get me those within an hour?" "You would do this for strangers, for a species you have never met?" Daniel paused. He seemed to consider the question seriously. "Where I come from, there's a simple rule. If someone needs help and you can help them, you help them. Doesn't matter if you know them, doesn't matter if it's dangerous. You just do it." "But you could die." "Probably," Daniel shrugged. "But those people definitely will if nobody goes, so the math is pretty simple." Lyra stared at him. She had spent her entire life among species who calculated risk, who weighed survival against sacrifice, who made rational decisions based on probability of success. This human was not rational. He was something else entirely. "I will get you what you need," she said. "Good, and administrator." "Yes." "You should probably stay here. The dead corridor is no place for someone who hasn't." "I am coming with you." The words left her mouth before she could stop them. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Those are my people out there," Lyra continued. "I will not send a stranger to save them while I wait in safety. That is not who I want to be." Daniel studied her for a long moment, then he nodded. "Get your things, we leave in 1 hour." As Lyra hurried to prepare, she passed a fellow administrator in the corridor. He grabbed her arm, his dark eyes wide with disbelief. "I saw you talking to the human," he whispered. "You hired him for the dead corridor." "Yes." "Lyra, do you understand what you have done? Humans are not like us, they do not think like us. When they decide something is worth fighting for, they do not stop, they do not surrender, they do not accept defeat. You have not hired a rescuer, you have unleashed something." Lyra pulled her arm free. "Good," she said. "Maybe that is exactly what those pirates need to face." She walked away, leaving her colleagues staring after her. In the docking bay, Daniel Price was already warming up his engines. Lyra had never seen so much darkness. The dead corridor lived up to its name. No stars visible through the debris clouds, no station lights in the distance, no patrol beacons marking safe passage, just endless black emptiness punctuated by the occasional tumbling asteroid or the skeletal remains of ships that had wandered here and never left. She sat in the co-pilot seat of the Resolute, her fingers digging into the armrests. Every instinct in her body screamed at her to run, to turn back, to escape this place where nothing good could survive. Her species had evolved on a peaceful world with few predators, and her ancestors had learned one simple lesson: when danger appears, you flee. Daniel flew the ship like he was taking a casual trip to a neighboring station. His hands moved across the controls with practiced ease, his eyes scanning the sensor readings without urgency. The medical monitor on the console showed his vital signs. His heart rate was 62 beats per minute, barely elevated. "How can you be so calm?" Lyra asked. "Practice." "That is not an answer." Daniel glanced at her. "When I was younger, I worked planetary rescue, earthquakes, floods, wildfires, building collapses. The job was simple: go into places that were trying to kill everyone, find the people who needed help, bring them out. You learn pretty quickly that panic doesn't help anyone. Fear is just information. It tells you something is dangerous. It doesn't tell you what to do about it. My people believe fear is wisdom. To feel afraid is to recognize the truth of a situation. Maybe, but recognizing truth and acting on it are different things. Fear tells me this place is dangerous. I already knew that. Now I need to focus on the job." Lyra fell silent. She watched Daniel navigate through a particularly dense debris field, threading the Resolute between spinning chunks of metal and rock with casual precision. She had seen Valorian pilots freeze in situations far less threatening than this. "Tell me about the Grave Keepers," Daniel said. Lyra pulled up the data on her console. "Mixed-species pirate crew, approximately 40 members. They operate from a converted asteroid base somewhere in this region. Their leader is a reptilian named Grawl. He is known for brutality. He lost an eye and an arm in a territorial dispute years ago, and he replaced the arm with a mechanical prosthetic. He sells captured passengers to labor cartels throughout the sector." "Any weaknesses?" "They are pirates, not soldiers. Most of them joined for profit, not because they believe in anything. Grawl holds them together through fear and the promise of payment." Daniel nodded slowly. "So if we make them question whether the profit is worth the risk, they might reconsider." "You believe you can convince pirates to release their captives through conversation?" "I believe I can make them understand that keeping those captives will cost them more than letting them go." A soft chime drew their attention to the sensor display. A faint signal pulsed in the darkness ahead, matching the frequency of the refugee transport's emergency beacon. "I have them," Daniel said. "Bearing 47 degrees, distance approximately 200 kilometers. The signal is coming from inside an asteroid cluster." Lyra's heart raced. That must be the Grave Keeper base. "Looks like it. I'm picking up multiple ship signatures docked around a central structure. The refugee transport is there too. still intact. They are alive. The transport's life support is still functioning, so yes, probably. Relief flooded through Lyra, followed immediately by fresh terror. Her people were alive, but they were surrounded by pirates in a fortress hidden in the most dangerous region of space she had ever seen. "What is your plan?" she asked. "We dock at their base. I talk to Grawl. We leave with the refugees." "That is not a plan. That is a list of things you hope will happen." "Most plans are." Daniel adjusted their course, heading directly toward the pirate stronghold. "The trick is making the other side believe you have more options than you actually do." A new alert flashed across the console. 3 ship signatures had broken away from the asteroid cluster and were moving toward them. Pirate patrol vessels, armed and fast. "They have seen us," Lyra said. "Good, saves us the trouble of announcing ourselves." "Good, they are going to attack us." "Maybe, or maybe they'll want to know why a ship is flying toward them instead of running away. Curiosity might buy us a few minutes." Lyra watched the patrol vessels close the distance. Her every instinct demanded that they turn around, that they flee while they still could. But Daniel kept flying forward, steady and unhurried, as though 3 armed ships were not converging on their position. "Why aren't we running?" she demanded. Daniel's reply was quiet but firm. "Because they took people who needed help, and I don't run from that." The comm system crackled to life. A harsh voice filled the cockpit. "Unidentified vessel, you have entered Grave Keeper territory. Cut your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in immediate destruction." Daniel keyed the transmitter. "This is the Resolute. I'm here to speak with Grawl about a business matter. Tell him a human wants to negotiate." Silence followed, then the voice returned, uncertain now. "A human? That's right, I'll be docking at your main bay in 10 minutes. I suggest you let him know I'm coming." Daniel cut the transmission and continued toward the asteroid base. Lyra could only watch, wondering what kind of being she had followed into this darkness. The pirate base smelled like rust and fear. Lyra stayed close to Daniel as they walked down the boarding ramp into the main docking bay. The air was thick with recycled chemicals and the distant hum of machinery that had not been properly maintained in years. Emergency lights flickered overhead, casting harsh shadows across the assembled welcoming party. 30 armed pirates surrounded them, a mix of species from across the galaxy, all of them scarred and hard-eyed. They held weapons pointed at Daniel and Lyra, but none of them stepped forward. They were waiting. Grawl emerged from the crowd. He was massive, easily twice Daniel's height, with scales the color of dried blood and a single yellow eye that gleamed with cruel intelligence. His left arm had been replaced with a mechanical prosthetic, crude but functional, ending in 3 metal fingers that could crush bone. He moved with the confidence of someone who had spent decades being most dangerous creature in any room. He stopped a few meters from Daniel and studied the human with obvious curiosity. "You flew toward us," Grawl said, his voice a grinding rasp that echoed through the docking bay. "Every ship in this sector runs when they see our flag, but you, human, came closer." He tilted his massive head. "Why aren't you running, human?" Daniel stood at the base of the ramp, his hands visible at his sides. He did not reach for a weapon, did not take a defensive stance. He simply looked at Grawl with calm, patient attention. "Because you have something that belongs to other people," Daniel replied. 217 Valorian refugees, taken from a transport 19 hours ago. I'm here to bring them home." Grawl stared at him, then he laughed, a harsh, barking sound that made several of his crew flinch. "1 human against my entire crew," Grawl gestured at the armed pirates surrounding them. "You must be insane." "I've been told that before." "And what exactly do you think you can do here, little human? You have no weapons, no army, no leverage. You are meat waiting to be processed." Daniel did not react to the threat. His voice remained level, almost conversational. "Before I entered your docking bay, my ship transmitted our coordinates to Station Reinar 7. If I don't return within 6 hours, Galactic Authority patrol vessels will converge on this location. They've been looking for an excuse to clean out the dead corridor for years. You'll be giving them one." Grawl's eye narrowed. "You're bluffing." "Maybe, but can you afford to find out? Your operation depends on staying hidden. If patrol ships start sweeping this region, how long before they find your base? How many of your crew will stay loyal when the Galactic Authority comes knocking?" The pirates exchanged uneasy glances. Lyra watched them, seeing something she had not expected. They were afraid. Not of the patrol ships, not of the Galactic Authority. They were afraid of the humans standing calmly before them. "I could kill you right now," Grawl said. "Destroy your ship before any signal reaches anyone." "You could try, but here's the thing about humans. Grawl, we're not like other species. We don't calculate odds the way you do. We don't weigh survival against principle. When we decide something matters, we commit, completely, without reservation." Daniel took one step forward. His movement was slow, deliberate, unthreatening, but every pirate in the room tensed. "I came here knowing I might die. I accepted that before I ever entered the dead corridor. That means you have no leverage over me. You can't threaten someone who's already made peace with the outcome. But I can threaten you, because I know something about myself that you're only just beginning to understand." "And what is that?" "I don't stop, I don't negotiate, I don't accept defeat. Those refugees are leaving this station. The only question is whether you're smart enough to let them go, or whether you force me to find another way." Grawl's mechanical hand clenched and unclenched. His single eye searched Daniel's face for any sign of weakness, any hint of bluffing, any crack in the mask of calm certainty. He found nothing. "Your species," Grawl said slowly. "I've heard stories about how you hunt, about how you tracked prey across entire continents until it collapsed, about how you never gave up, never stopped, never accepted that something was impossible." He paused. "I thought they were exaggerations." "They weren't." Silence fell over the docking bay. The pirates looked at their leader, waiting for a decision. Lyra held her breath. Grawl was a predator. He had survived for decades by knowing when to fight and when to retreat. He had built his empire on calculating risk and reward. And now, standing before this strange, soft-skinned creature from a death world, he was running those calculations again. The human was not afraid to die. That made him dangerous in a way Grawl had never encountered. You could not intimidate someone who had already accepted the worst outcome. You could only kill them, and killing them meant consequences. The refugees were worth money, but money meant nothing if patrol ships burned his base to ash. "The Valorians," Grawl said finally. "They are more trouble than they're worth. Their species is fragile, and half of them are sick from the journey. Take them." His crew shifted, surprised. Some looked ready to protest, but none dared speak. Daniel nodded once. "Wise choice." Grawl leaned close, his voice dropping to a growl only Daniel could hear. "If you ever enter my territory again, human, I will not be so generous." "Fair enough." Daniel turned and walked toward the corridor leading to the holding cells. Lyra followed, her legs shaking. Behind them, 30 armed pirates parted like water before a stone. The children saw Lyra first. They pressed against the bars of the makeshift holding cell, their large, dark eyes filled with a mixture of hope and terror. Behind them, the adult refugees huddled in groups, families clinging to each other, the elderly supported by the young. All of them looked exhausted, frightened, and broken. When Lyra stepped into the light, a ripple of recognition passed through the crowd. She wore station administrator insignia. She was one of them, and beside her stood something they had never expected to see in this place: a human. An elderly Valorian female rose slowly from the back of the cell. Her name was Senna, and she had been a counselor before the border conflict forced her people to flee. She moved through the crowd until she reached the bars, her eyes fixed on Daniel. "Who are you?" she asked. "My name is Daniel Price. I'm here to take you home." Senna studied him. Her species could read subtle emotional cues in body language. and she searched for any sign of deception. She found none. The pirates agreed to release us. They did. Why would a human risk his life for strangers? It was the same question Lyra had asked. Daniel gave the same answer. Because you needed help, and I could help, that's enough. Senna was silent for a moment. Then she turned to the refugees behind her. Gather everyone, we are leaving. The pirates had not treated their captives gently. Several Valorians were injured, and many were too weak to walk without assistance. The children clung to their parents, afraid to make any sound that might draw attention. They had learned quickly that noise brought punishment. Lyra moved among her people, speaking softly in their native language, reassuring them. She felt tears building behind her eyes, but she forced them back. There would be time for emotion later. Right now, she needed to be strong. Daniel assessed the situation with clinical efficiency. We have a problem. My ship can carry 60 passengers in emergency conditions. There are over 200 of you. The transport, Senna said. Our ship is still docked here. The pirates disabled the engines, but the hull and life support remain functional. Can it be repaired? A young female stepped forward. Her name was Pella, and she had worked in a shipyard before the evacuation. I can try. If the damage is not too severe, I might be able to restore basic engine. Function. Daniel nodded. Show me. They made their way to the docking bay where the refugee transport sat. The ship was old and battered, designed for short-range travel rather than deep space. Pirates had stripped some components for salvage, but the core systems appeared intact. Pella crawled into the engineering compartment while Daniel stood guard. Lyra helped organize the refugees, directing the able-bodied to assist the injured. Within an hour, Pella emerged, her face smeared with grease but her expression hopeful. I can do it, she said. The main drive is damaged but not destroyed. If I reroute power from the secondary systems, I can give us enough thrust to reach Station Reinar 7. How long? 3 hours, maybe 4. Daniel considered this. 4 hours was a long time to remain in pirate territory. Grawl had agreed to release the refugees, but agreements could change, especially if the pirate leader had time to reconsider. Do it, Daniel said. I'll make sure we're not interrupted. While Pella worked, Lyra found herself standing beside Daniel near the docking bay entrance. The pirates had withdrawn, but she could feel their eyes watching from the shadows. You are afraid, she said. Daniel glanced at her. What makes you say that? I have been watching you. At first, I thought you felt nothing. Your heart rate never increased, your voice never wavered. But now I see the small things, the way you check the entrances every few minutes, the tension in your shoulders. You are not without fear, you simply do not show it. Would it help anyone if I showed it? No, but it would be more honest. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Fear is a tool. It keeps you alert. It tells you where the danger might come from, but if you let it control you, it becomes a prison. I learned a long time ago to feel the fear and then set it aside. There's always time to fall apart after the job is done. Lyra considered this. Her entire species had built their survival strategy around obeying fear, around running from danger and accepting losses. But here was a being who felt the same fear and simply refused to let it dictate his actions. My grandmother told me stories about humans, Lyra said. She said your ancestors hunted by following prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. She said you evolved to never give up. I always thought she was exaggerating. She wasn't. A commotion at the far end of the docking bay drew their attention. Grawl was returning, and he was not alone. A dozen armed pirates followed him, and his expression had changed. The calculating acceptance from before had been replaced by something harder. I've been thinking, Grawl announced, his mechanical hand flexing at his side. About our arrangement, about what these refugees are worth to the labor cartels, about what I'm giving up by letting them go. Daniel stepped forward, placing himself between Grawl and the refugees. We had a deal. Deals change, human. You convinced me once with your words, but now I've had time to think. Time to remember that words are just air, and you are just one man. Grawl smiled, revealing rows of serrated teeth. I've changed my mind, you can leave, but the refugees stay. Nobody moved. The docking bay had become a frozen moment, suspended between violence and retreat. Grawl's pirates fanned out behind their leader, weapons raised, while 200 Valorian refugees watched from the transport bay doors with silent terror. Daniel stood alone in the center. He did not draw a weapon. He did not take a defensive stance. He simply watched Grawl with the same calm patience he had shown since arriving. "You're making a mistake," Daniel said. Grawl laughed. "Am I? I see one human surrounded by my crew. I see cargo worth a fortune waiting to be sold. I see a deal I never should have made being corrected. Where is my mistake?" "Right there, you said it yourself, one human. That is supposed to frighten me." Daniel's voice dropped, not threatening, not angry, just quiet and certain. "You know the stories about my species, Grawl. You mentioned them earlier, about how we hunted, about how we never stopped. You thought they were exaggerations until you met me. Now you're not so sure. Stories don't stop bullets." "No, but stories exist for a reason. My ancestors survived a world that tried to kill them every single day. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, starvation. Everything on our planet wanted us dead, and we survived anyway. Do you know how?" Grawl said nothing. "We refused to quit. We kept going when logic said to stop. We fought when fighting was hopeless. We protected our own even when it cost us everything. That's not a story, that's instinct, burned into every cell of my body." Daniel took one step forward. Grawl's crew shifted, nervous. "You want to know why I came here?" "Alone, because I don't need an army. I just need to be the one thing you can't calculate. Someone who doesn't care about survival. Someone who already decided this was worth dying for." "Then you'll die." "Maybe, but here's what happens next. You give the order to shoot me, and I'll take at least 3 of your crew before I go down, probably more, definitely you. I'll make absolutely sure of that. You'll be dead before my body hits the floor." Grawl's single eye narrowed. "You can't know that." "I know exactly how fast I can move and exactly how close you're standing. I've done the math. Your crew might kill me, but you won't see it happen, so the question isn't whether I die today. The question is whether you do." Silence stretched through the docking bay. Lyra watched from behind a cargo container, her heart pounding. She could see the pirates looking at each other, uncertain. None of them wanted to be the ones who tested whether the human was bluffing. "Your crew knows it too," Daniel continued. "Look at them. They're not eager to find out what happens when they pull those triggers, because deep down, they've heard the same stories you have. They know what humans are capable of when we decide something matters." He took another step forward. Grawl held his ground, but his mechanical hand had stopped flexing. "I'm not asking you to be generous. I'm asking you to be smart. The refugees aren't worth this. They're not worth finding out if the stories are true. Let them go, and this ends peacefully. Keep them. And we both know how this ends." "Why?" Grawl demanded. "Why would you die for them? They're not your species, they're not your family, they're nothing to you." Daniel's reply came without hesitation. "Because someone has to, and I'm the one who's here." The words hung in the air, simple and absolute. Lyra understood then what made humans different. It was not their strength or their weapons or their technology. It was this, a willingness to stand in the gap, to face death for strangers, to make someone else's survival their own responsibility. Her species ran from danger. It was logical, it was safe. It was how they survived. Humans ran toward it. Grawl stood motionless, his mind working through possibilities. He was a survivor, a predator who had clawed his way to power through violence and cunning. Every instinct told him to destroy this defiant creature, to make an example of anyone who challenged him. But another part of him, the part that had kept him alive for so long, whispered a warning. The human was not afraid. The human had accepted death, and a being with nothing to lose was the most dangerous thing in the universe. Your people are not worth my life, Grawl said finally. He turned and walked away. His crew followed, one by one, none of them willing to be the first to test the humans' claims. Daniel did not move until the last pirate had disappeared into the corridors. Then finally he exhaled. 3 hours later, the refugee transport lifted off from the asteroid base, its engines humming with makeshift repairs. The Resolute flew alongside, guiding them through the debris fields of the dead corridor. When they emerged into patrolled space, Lyra finally let herself cry. At station Reinar 7, Senna found Daniel before he could slip away. "My people will remember this," she said. "We will tell our children and they will tell theirs. A human came into the darkness for us." Daniel shifted, uncomfortable, just doing what needed to be done. Lyra approached him later, at his ship. "I understand now," she said. "Why the galaxy tells stories about humans. It's not because you're stronger, it's because you don't stop. You decide something is right, and you do it, regardless of the cost." Daniel considered this. Maybe we're just too stubborn to know when to quit. He extended his hand. Lyra took it. "Safe travels, Daniel." "Safe travels, Administrator." The Resolute lifted off, and Lyra watched until it vanished among the stars. Somewhere in the darkness, Grawl was telling his crew never to underestimate humans again.